So now we're talking about the fundamental locomotor skills. So locomotor, think about a train. Train is often called a locomotor. So the purpose of the train is to get you from point A to point B. And so when we think about locomotor skills, we're thinking about the same thing. It's a movement that gets us from one place to the next. So the first fundamental locomotor skill is walking. And it's upright. We're only using 2 feet. So our hands are finally free to be able to carry things with us. So the first movement patterns that we developed are crawling and creeping. And since we're on all fours, it's really difficult for the baby to carry their toys with them. But now that they're walking, their hands are free and they can carry objects. So when we talk about walking, we have divided into different phases. And so this is phases of gait. Gait is just the scientific term for a walking pattern. And so if you look at the red leg is the right leg in the foreground, and the black leg is the left leg in the background. So here you see the left leg goes up off the ground, leaving only the right leg still in contact with the floor. And so the right leg is, since it's contacting the floor, is in stance phase, whereas the left leg, which has been lifted up and forward, is in swing phase. So right, that makes sense. Stance is staying still and swing is moving. Okay, so you should be able to keep up with that. And so single means one. So single support phase means 1 foot is on the ground, and double means 2. Double support phase means 2 feet are on the ground. Right, they make this easy for you. Okay, so when the baby's learning to walk, what's the first problem they have to solve to be able to do this? Well, the first problem is balance, right? How do I stand on 2 feet and not fall over? And that's especially challenging for a baby because their head is so big relative to the rest of their body. Their head can be about 25% of their body, whereas it's more proportional as we get older and taller. All right, so because they're so top heavy, then it's more difficult for them to stand upright. So they use a solution for balance, what looks a little bit different when they're walking than what a normal adult pattern looks like. So they have their feet are spread farther apart, their arms are up by their head and spread out wide for balance. They take shorter, smaller steps, and they have more double support time. Remember, that's when both feet are on the ground. Okay, so here you can kind of see what that looks like. So this is what a baby looks like walking. So you can see their feet are more spread apart. They're landing flat-footed when they hit the ground. Their arms are up by their head and kind of wide. Toes pointed out too, and that helps increase the base of support. And then here you can see the mature adult gait, and we see a heel strike is in the mature form. So that means, instead of the baby's hitting flat foot, the whole foot hits the ground at the same time. In adult walking, you'll notice, and you start paying attention to this now because you probably never noticed it before, but when you hit the ground, you hit with your heel first and then rotate to your toe so that your whole foot's on the ground. And then when you pick your foot up, the toe is the last part of your foot to come off. Okay, so that is evident in mature gait. So that's something that develops later. You also end up with a longer step length with mature gait. And then arm swing develops. So they're no longer just holding their hands up by their head. Now we're swinging our arms to make our gait more efficient. So most of these features you can see by 3 years of old, and then they just get more efficient and better practice and more balance as they get older. So then after we get walking down, running is not that long after that. And they're not even to mature walking form before they start running. So what's the difference between walking and running? Right, they both look very similar, but you'll see, and with running, you should see at some point both feet are off the ground. Right, so every time you take a step off of 1 foot, So you jump up off into the air before the next foot lands. All right, so there's this point between each step where your both feet are in the air, whereas walking, there's always one foot on the ground. Okay, so this is when your both feet are in the ground, on the air. That's the flight phase. And then as one foot hits the ground and you start projecting forward again, that's the recovery phase. And then support is when you hit the ground. Okay, and then these charts are in your book, so you can make it easier to follow along, and they give you a really good description here and then a picture of what running looks like at each stage of development. And you'll see running is kind of the same as walking. So when they first start to run, again, they have the arms high and wide, short steps, hitting flat-footed, not a lot of knee flexion or hip extension here, which is what results in the small steps, and apparently more likely to fall. And then the mature form, you see the arm swing again, and you should have opposite arm to leg. You'll see a projection forward, a 45-degree angle with every launch, and then you'll see more knee and hip flexion to create that longer stride. So boys usually see mature form by 4 years of old, and girls, it'll be about 5 years old before you